Good morning, happy Monday, and welcome to the SHAC. My name is Barbara Gray from Clarity here in the UK, and it is hot. Yes, already 10 o'clock in the morning, and it is scorchio. So I hope that you're keeping nice and cool, and that you're drinking lots of water, and that you're here with me, keeping shady and creative, hey? Way too hot to go outside, certainly down here in the southeast. So we may as well stay in and get arty and hang out with a bunch of friends. I'm going to tell you all about France. Do you remember I went to Paris with Gracie, and I started the story last Thursday, and I thought I'd continue it this morning. Good morning, Jane. Good to have your company. And our friend Paul is in the building with you. So if you have any questions, then he's your man. And other than that, I think we're going to travel gently today. Now, this afternoon, we won't be having a 2 o'clock TV show because it's just too hot, friends. So it'll be like an oven in here. So we decided to hit the pause button and look forward to the weekend. So on Friday, we've got Janice Phillips down for the TV shows, which is great. She'll be launching her new stamps, and then that reminds me, I must say that. Let me just write this down so I don't forget it. Jazz words, Janice. There you go. Then I'll remember. Yeah, so Janice is down for 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And then on Sunday, of course, we begin our 10-year anniversary celebrations for Groovy. So that'll be cool. And that'll be very cool. So we're gearing up for that. And I think we'll focus on that. And we've also got something for the stampers, something new and beautiful. So that's it. And that also gives us a chance to finish picking and packing those sale orders, which are going out the door. They're flying out the door. So if you're still waiting on your sale order, just give us a chance. We're a couple of people down in that department, but it's going really well. So that's good. Marion, grüß dich. Schön, dass du auch da bist. I hope that the weather in Germany isn't too brutal. I've been watching the news. Terrible in so hot, you know, much hotter than here. So when we were in France, in Paris, it was really warm. And now I hear that they had terrible floods as well in Paris. How strange. On Thursday. I know I didn't know about it, but yeah, crazy weather patterns at the moment, aren't they? So in fact, they've even in Spain and in Portugal, I think they've made it illegal to go out in the midday sun. That's how hot it is. So mad dogs and English people will be out there, I bet. Yeah, so, and we are colouring in actually a really nice little set of houses. Yeah, that's exactly right, Jill. Close the curtains, keep the fan on, keep cool. I remember when I lived in California, it used to get so hot, and you just learn, you deal with it, don't you? When the sun comes in, you close the windows, you close the blinds, you close the curtains on that side of the house, and then in the evening when you open the curtains, you open the blinds, you open the windows, let some fresh air in. Yeah. I think the most important thing to do is stay in the shade and drink lots of water, friends. We are of an age, and you get dehydrated without even realizing it. Okay? You do. You get dehydrated and you don't even realize you are. So just drink 8 pints of water a day. That's all I'll say. 8 glasses of water a day. Seems like a lot, but in this temperature, that's what I've set my target. 8 bottles of these a day. Okay, that'll work. Can't go out then because I've got to stay near the loo. Right, so let's have a look. We're adding some colour now. What was I using? I was using my the Polychromos set to do this, and I also, because we're using copy paper, I'm just going to stick to these kind of colours. You'll see that I've added a little bit more colour. Let's come in a bit closer. Just bear with me a minute. Now let's have a look. That's better, isn't it? So you can see here, one of the things that I noticed as well, and I want to flag this up. See how when you use the Pergolina B pencils or the Polychromos, they get kind of, they're oil-based, aren't they? The waxy oil-based pencils. And then what happens is they get like a sheen on them. And then it's more difficult to add shadow. But there's different ways to add shadow. And I'm going to show you a trick. Our Dorso oil, and you know, after a while, say you want to put a shadow in here, but you've got that yellow sheen, or you've got a sheen here. I've already done it on the green one, so you can see how it works. But if, for example, you take some Dorso oil, when it starts to get, because the thing is, you can rub it out, but then you've eliminated it again. So this way, what we're going to do is use the Dorso oil and use, let's pan out a little bit so you can see what I'm doing, and use the spot-on sponge. We'll put a little bit of Dorso oil on there. Don't need much. Need a bit more than when you're working with parchment because it's absorbent, isn't it? The copy paper is absorbent. I've got a bit of copy paper. I'm working copy paper on copy paper here. So let me get a fresh one of those. These are great blending pens. Okay. Right, so pop that in there. And then what we'll do is we'll just let that pen soak up some of the Dorso oil. And then what we'll do is, see, you can see when it's shiny. So for example, if I come in here now and I just run over the yellow, right, run over the yellow like that. And what you'll find is when you do that, apart from smoothing out the colour, what it also does is, just let me get that colour going. It smooths out the colour, but it also takes away that shiny. See, so you go along there. It blends the colour in, which is really cool, but it also takes away that shiny element. So now, for example, when that dries, you can't see it very well, but when it dries, what will happen is, let me go in here a bit, just break up that sheen, right, the surface, and then when you do that, once it dries, and it evaporates quite fast, it certainly in this heat it does. So when you just bring in the little bit of oil, it's really lovely to blend the colours, okay? But it also opens it up for more shading. So we'll just do that. Just add a little bit of shade. I mean, it's very kind of grungy, arty, this effect anyway, isn't it? So over here, I haven't done enough to warrant that yet. But you can see, just leave that like so. And then what we'll do is we'll use that when you're colouring in, say you're doing a bit of shading, and then you feel, hang on, it's just not taking anymore. That it's just sliding over the top. When that happens, then all you need to do is just loosen up the pigment with the oil, let it dry, and then go again. And you'll see you get some fantastic shade that way without actually eliminating the colour. Because it's so hot in here, I'm going to lean on a piece of copy paper, okay? So, good morning, everybody. Come on in. Yeah, I thought you'd join me. It's way too hot to do anything else. And I know you're waiting to hear all about the Paris trip. It was great. It was absolutely great. And if you didn't join us on Thursday evening, then I told you loads of little anecdotes about Paris then, but I thought it'd be really cool to carry on today. And I thought I'd start with, we got there on Monday, and then on Tuesday we'd planned a tour, a walking tour. I mean, it was a bit of an endurance test because it was so hot. What it is here now, it was that in Paris last week. Oh, yeah. Well, not last week, the week before. Mental. But, you know, we weren't going to sit indoors. We did actually stay indoors a couple of days. I binged Bridgerton. I know. Whatever next, eh? Like I haven't seen it before. But that's okay. It was just too hot to do anything on a couple of days. So we just... And Grace put it very well. She said, if we were at the beach or on a beach holiday or a hotel with a swimming pool holiday, we would sit in the sunshine or sit under an umbrella and we'd do absolutely nothing. So she said, so we're in a city, so why do we have to chase our tails? Why can't we have that time where we do nada? And I thought, she's not wrong. So we did nada. We just hung out and read books and talked and ate baguette, as you do when you're in French France. Right, so let's have a look. If I'm going to add a little bit of shade, I need the grey pencils, the ones from that set of 12, that oh so useful set of 12. Right, so let's get some shading going. And then if it gets a little bit steamy, let's have a look. I'll do the roof. See, where I've added get some shading going under there. This is easy, this one now. You can feel it. It's got more purchase. As soon as you distribute the pigment with the oil, you can feel immediately it just takes the pencil better. Let's come in a bit closer so you can see this. There. You can see exactly, you can feel it as when you're colouring. Like, watch this. If over this, it should be dry by now. If it's dry, it works ideal. But if it's not dry yet, yeah, here we go. So it's not quite dry, but it's good enough for what I need. See how it just takes the shadow so much better. So we're going to do that. Add a little bit of shadow. There we are. When it's dry, it works better. That's all I'll say on that one. But it's good. So this is an easy job to do while I'm telling you all about our trip, right? Yeah, look, it's nice, isn't it? So excuse my head if it's in the way. And then I'll tell you about what we got up to. Hey, did you fancy that? Right, come on in then. Right, here we go. So on the Tuesday, we'd booked, this is Barbara and Grace in Paris. Right, so on the Tuesday, we'd booked, that looks good, doesn't it? A walking tour. We did that before we got there. And doesn't that look nice? I don't want it to be too dark though. And Gracie sorted that out, and it went really well. So what we had to do was, because we weren't really familiar with where we were at this point, and we didn't really understand how the metro worked at this point either. So we decided, well, no, I said, why don't we walk? It's only an hour. And Gracie, the voice of reason, said, why on earth? She actually said something else, but let's just, for the sake of television, why on earth would we walk an hour to go on a 5-hour walking tour, mother? Right. So now you can add the expletives as you feel necessary. Yeah. So I get it. So we took an Uber because we didn't really understand how or where we were going. So we didn't want to miss the start of the tour. So we took an Uber over to the other side of town. So when we got there, because I got my way, we were very early, because I always feel I'd rather be early than late, because late for a walking tour means you missed it and you're not going, whereas early means you can have a coffee, figure out what you're doing. So we got there really early, earlier than anybody. Nobody, no other visitors, no other people that looked like they were set for a walk. Nobody there except us. But that's okay. So I said, well, come on then, let's have a little look round. So at the top of the hill where we were stood standing, at the top of the hill there was this really big building. I said to Grace, that looks impressive. Let's take a mosey up there and see what it is. So we went up there, and it was nice. And I said, I bet this is an important one, Grace. It looks really important. So we looked around. I said, if this is where they're starting the tour, I bet it's an iconic one. I bet it's one of the, the top 5 in Paris. And sure enough, sure as eggs is eggs, it was called the Sacré-Cœur Montmartre. So we were doing our homework before the bloke arrived, or the woman, right? We didn't know who the tour guide was. So we already had a cup of coffee, worked out that we were at the base of the Sacré-Cœur Basilica, I think it's called. Anyway, I'm no historian, but even I knew that was a biggie. So then we waited for the guys to turn up. This one needs a little bit depth, doesn't it? So then we waited for the people to turn up. And then the first lot, they were Canadians, but they were French-speaking Canadians. Didn't speak a lot of English, which was interesting. So they came from Quebec. So my French is pretty good. Well, not bad. Let's call it not bad. I understand more than I speak, as one does. But I do have a degree in it, so one would hope that I could understand quite a bit. Anyway, so there you go. That looks good. So the French turned up and they said, well, we're here for the French guided tour. So I thought, well, there'd be 2 of them then. Then the girl turned up that was doing the tour, but she was only speaking English and she definitely wasn't doing a French tour. So then the Canadians started getting a little bit antsy because they were like, well, then the Americans turned up. American contingent, the largest base. We were with, there was one other English girl from Bristol, and the rest were pretty much all Americans from different parts of America. So we had like North Carolina, we had Florida. It was hilarious, right? They were such nice people. There was Doug. He was from Oregon. He was a nice man. So we had all these different people from all over America. And so it was definitely shaping up to be an English-speaking, because otherwise, well, even Grace's little face dropped when they said, well, it's going to be a French-speaking tour. She's like, well, she doesn't speak French. So she said, this is going to be interesting. Anyway, so then the girl turned up and it was 100% English tour result. These 2 Canadians are starting to get a bit stressy. So then, not stressy, really stroppy, actually. So we kept out of it. We went and got our underground tickets. We sorted out the metro tickets. We thought, we'll get away from the ag. We didn't come to Paris for a fight, okay? Not on this occasion. So let's go and get our metro tickets, we said. Let them get on with it. We're in the majority. It's definitely an English tour, right? So why get involved? Doesn't involve you, said Asterisk. So off we went. And when we came back, suddenly there were 2 groups, and they were. But then the tour people, the guides, they were then having it out because obviously one was American, so he definitely was. He wanted to do the English group, and the girl she was throwing the toys out the pram because she wanted to do the English group as well. Anyway, long story short, we ended up with this really nice bloke called Raphael. And as we left and went trundling up to Montmartre and the Sacré-Cœur, where we'd already been, right? Remember, Grace and I had already done our recce. We'd already done we knew where we were. So, and these two Canadians were still standing there on their own, like, not happy. Not my circus, not my monkeys, I said. Come on, let's go. I'm not getting involved. And so we went off and left them there. There was a little bit of miscommunication. Let's call it miscommunication. Yeah, this looks good, doesn't it? Anyway, so we trundled off and we went to the nice building, aka the Sacre-Cœur. This looks good. And then it was brilliant, this tour, because the guy, Raphael, he was a very, very educated, I'm going to use this Payne's Grey. He was a very educated professor. He was American, and he was a lecturer at the Paris Institute. So he was a clever bloke, historian. And his grandfather, he was telling us a story, was a really well-known author back in the day. So that was interesting to find out about his granddad. I'm going to keep this very tone in tone, okay? Finding out about his granddad, who was a kind of in Hemingway times, like, so he was in like the top 3 New York best-selling and all the rest of it. Very interesting, anyway. So we went from the Sacre-Cœur, we walked over the top of the hill, and then we ended up going to Montmartre, which is really lovely. Okay, Montmartre. And the reason we'd done the tour, which I think was a smart move, we did the tour with this in mind, that what we were going to do, doesn't that look good? That we were going to, if we saw something that we particularly liked, we'd come back to it. That was what we decided. So both of us unanimously agreed that we're coming back to Montmartre, we said. So we walked through it because we had a bit of we were on a mission. We befriended Doug from Oregon because he'd had a knee replacement a couple of years ago. So he was he was lagging behind, let's say that. And I had a lot of empathy for him because of Dave. And so Grace and I kind of hung back with him and made sure. Then there was a family from North Carolina. You know, it was like trying to herd cats with this family from North Carolina. They were forever disappearing. So Raphael, the guide, you could see him in he was a very polite young man, but you could see in his head what he was thinking, even though he didn't voice it. And so this crowd from North Carolina, they kept disappearing, going off. Then they decided, without telling anyone, just to go into a coffee shop and use the loo. So there was 10 of us, or 8 of us, looking for, and they were quite a big family, like 4 of them. So that was a bit of a, you know, but there you go. It was fine. We just kept going, and it helped Doug because he gave him a chance to catch up while they were all looking for North Carolina, the North Carolina contingent. So then we got on. So that was it. And then what we were doing was we were jumping on and off. Right, let's have a look. I want to add a little bit more shadow on this one. So I'm going to go with a lighter grey, and then I'll build it up. So then we got on the metro, and we were jumping on and off the metro, which was quite good. But the thing was, it was so informative, right? Because this guy, Raphael, he was just so knowledgeable, which was the reason why we'd done it, because you just learn so much, right? Things that you would walk past and you wouldn't know it was there. Do you know what I mean? And he took a shining to us as well. So he was just a smashing fella. Anyway, so there were little things, like he was very interesting in his approach as well. You know, he apologized at the outset. He said, I tend to talk too much. and say too much. And I said, well, it is a guided tour, you know, we are coming to be taught, to be guided. And as long as we kept listening, he kept talking. So it was really interesting, okay? Like there was one place, there was a really nice place just down from Montmartre where, so what I'm doing here is I'm just, see how the oil is just beautifully spreading the shadows. Nice, very nice, softens it up nicely. And if you feel you've done too much, that's the other thing is, of course, you can just lose it. Let's go in there again. I feel like I've killed the pink on this, on the ceiling, on the roof. Let's get rid of some. There you go. Just push it away. Look, great, isn't it? So yeah, just down from Montmartre, he was showing us a house where Picasso used to live, and there was Van Gogh and all the different painters. Anyway, this particular house was the Picasso. He lived there for a few years. More interestingly for me, everybody was standing there trying to make photographs of this house, take selfies in that of the house. But what was more interesting, because it was so hot, was that there was a fountain, a really nice fountain in this square under the trees. So Raphael was telling us, are you interested in this? I think so. Yeah, so the fountain was under the trees, and I was more interested in the fountain because I needed a drink. It was getting really hot, right? It was starting to heat up. Anyway, so he told us, I'll show you a picture of these fountains, because he said what had happened was, this was during the French Revolution and the lead up to the French Revolution, right? Let's say, for example, my history is not great, but say in 1789, 1800s, the beginning of that period, okay, the French people, they were so poor, okay, and starving. And it was at a time where water was more expensive than wine, right? It was that ridiculous. Let's do a bit more pink. So the water was even more expensive than wine, and people, you know, only the wealthy were getting wealthier, and the poor were getting poorer, and they were getting taxed out of extinction. I actually, while I was there, I thought, I think there's a book going around from government to government, and I think it's our turn now. This tax the poor thing, it seems to be coming full cycle, and we're copying it now. But back in the day, that's what happened in French France. And so, back to the fountain, there were these exquisite fountains. Let me show you. Let me just dig it out, because I want to show you the fountain. Right, here. See this fountain? It's beautiful. And if you hadn't taken a guided tour, Barbara, you'd never have known. And these are all over Paris. After I was shown this one by Raphael, I saw them in front of the English bookshop, the old English bookshop. There was one everywhere you went. And I was telling people, this is drinking water. You can fill your bottles here. It's free. And it was a fountain. And a very wealthy man at the time, he installed loads of these all over Paris for the poor people, right? And it was free drinking water, because there was disease, and it was all pretty extreme. But what he explained to us, Raphael, these 4 women, there are four women holding up the water, and they, there's 2 on this side, 2 on the other side, and they represent cleanliness, kindness, sobriety, and charity, the 4 women. So all the fountains, they represent cleanliness, kindness, charity, and sobriety. And they were donated to Paris by some rich fella who felt sorry for the poor. So they weren't all gazillionaires who didn't care. Okay, they weren't all Marie Antoinettes and Louis XVI who came to a sticky end. Anywho, that I thought that was really interesting, and I filled up my water. I had a little bottle of water, and I filled it up all the time. Wherever we were in Paris, you bump into one of these, and during the whole week, I'd say, "Oh, look, there's one of them fountains. Quick, fill your water up again." Great, you know. So that was a real. I thought it was really informative, you know. So let me find Paul again. There you go. So that was the fountains, and so that was the walk, and we did loads, and it was funny because as the walk went on, our group started thinning out. Like North Carolina, they peeled off when we got to to the Eiffel Tower. We got to the Eiffel Tower, all lovely, everyone taking selfies. North Carolina's gone. It was too hot for them. It was really scorchio. So then they've gone. Then we got to another area, and then Doug, the knee, he couldn't cope anymore. So Oregon's left, right? So then Oregon left, North Carolina left. There was Maryland. They left when we got to the Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's how I remembered it. When we got to Notre Dame, they left. Anyway, by the end, it was the Brits. There was Vicky from, I think, Bristol or Bath, and us two. we paid for it, and we stayed the course. And I wasn't sure whether Raphael was pleased or not pleased, but it was really, really excellent. And it kind of, it set the pace for the rest of the week. And it also, what I found it did, it gave you an orientation, you know. It really did. It gave us a good orientation. Right, I've done that door. I'm not going mad with the doors, okay? I don't want the doors to be in your face. So I'm going to go with because you wouldn't, would you? Why would you put a bright red door? Well, maybe. I don't want this artwork to do that, though. I want it to be mellow. Okay, you can make bright red doors if you fancy, but I'm going to go like mellow. Yeah, this is just a mellow door. So that was the see, and then you could almost add. I wonder if you could add a bit of blue over the top. Yes, I thought so. So you add blue over that beige, and you get a really lovely effect. So let's do that. Let's just add a bit of blue over the door. And then over that, yeah, I reckon that'll be lovely. There you go. So now we're using the blue as a shader. See? It's good. They're great for blending, these pencils. Right, that'll do. Now, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to cover it. It's a cat flap. Or whatever. Okay. So, that'll do for now. What do you think these I think they ought to be brown. Anyway, done that one. A little bit more. Let's do the doors. Okay, so light grey and then whatever the house colour is. So then that was the Tuesday. Okay, so let's call that a day. We've done the Tuesday. We've done the tour, the walk-in tour. We did about 15,000 steps that day. I know. Wear comfy shoes. So we did about 15,000 steps. And I knew I'd done 15,000 steps as well. Oh, right, bit of pink. See, you get a nice pink stain going. Lovely. Yeah, I like that. Now this one, green. Doesn't take much, does it? So then the next day, we went to the Palace of Versailles. By this time, we were on board with the metro. We knew how the metro worked. And the best thing was, right, because the Parisians are not famous for being friendly, but every now and again, you would meet the friendliest, most helpful. And then you'd find out they're not from Paris. they're interlopers like us. Anyway, so there was this young fella, and we were standing trying to work out how to get a train to Versailles. Didn't want to park. It's about 40 minutes outside of Paris. didn't want to get an Uber for that. So I said, we will work this out. We will get a train. There's nobody to help you. Nobody, just, it was a little bit pants like that. So anyway, so this guy, I asked him whether he took the time to help us download an app, show us how to do it, how to load the card, he was brilliant. And that kind of set us up for the rest of the week, really, this chap. He was so nice. And no, he was a lecturer, but he was from Lille, outside, he was out of town. And he was here for something completely different. So that was great. And he really helped us. So I feel I want to put a little bit of grey in there. And so that was nice. So we went to Versailles. You know, okay, we ticked that box. It wasn't my favourite place. I found it very boring, to be honest. Blimmin' hot. And, you know, just gallery after gallery, just loads of unattractive people in portraits. You know, not my bag, if I'm honest. You know, doesn't that look good? But hey ho, we've been there, we've done it. Grace and I had a laugh. She's saying, they're not very attractive, are they, these blokes in the pictures? And I was saying, you know, the interesting thing is that, you know, they've had their portrait done. They've paid a lot of money to have this done by some top artist. And, it, you know, it's not a photo. Photos don't lie unless you put a filter on them. This was, you know, if you didn't want your double chin, you'd say to the artist, can you know, change the way I look from the side, please? Can you sculpt it a bit better? But no. And Grace concluded, these must be the best versions. And then she was like, oh, imagine what they really look like. So then the job was to walk through the Palace of Versailles and find one good looking fella, not a live one, in the portraits. We didn't have a lot of luck. And then Grace, who's a real comedian, she started saying, well, he looks like Mickey Flanagan with a wig on, and he looks like Bob Mortimer, and so then we started, because they really did. It was so funny, okay? And we weren't really taking it seriously. And then we went in the garden, which was well, the garden isn't underwhelming. The garden is phenomenal, right? But what was underwhelming was that you paid a lot of money to go in the gardens because of all these water features and fountains. Well, two of them out of 20 odd were on, 2. So we had to walk miles to find the 2. You just had to listen to the splashing. So that day we did 20,000, over 20,000 steps. That was a little bit of a mission, that one. But, you know, we were doing it together and we just had so much fun. But, yeah, so that was good. Enjoyed it. I think I want to break that. See where I went a bit over the top on the black? It looks a little bit extreme, doesn't it? Let's just break this up a bit. Right. See, this is what I like about this kind of shading, especially on copy paper. See, you can make it lighter or darker, so you can remove it. Look, see, less now. Excellent, isn't it? So I've done that. One more door left. Okie dokie. Okay. So that was Versailles. Tick that box. Following day was the Thursday. That was the day we decided to. I tell you what we did. On the Thursday, I said, you know what? I've got O-level history, Grace, and I've never yet been able to figure out the chronology of French history. I've never worked out what came first. You know, I'm rubbish at dates anyway, but I couldn't work out French Revolution, Marie Antoinette, guillotine, and then Napoleon. And in my O-level, we did 20th century, so that was useful. but I wanted to learn it. So we went online and we found a YouTube that was like French history for idiots, for simpletons. Très facile. So anyway, it was in English as well, right? And it was a silly cartoon thing. But here we are, and now I get it. Okay, I get the chronology of the French Revolution. And in a nutshell, right, I'm not going to give you a history lesson now, but in a nutshell, Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, total decadent. The reason I wanted to know was because we've been to Versailles and it was all about them. And I thought, where does Napoleon come into it? So this French for Idiots YouTube enlightened me. And so apparently, right, Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette, they lived in absolute opulence, you know, taxing the peasants, you know, let them eat cake and all that. Completely disconnected from reality. And then the peasants revolted. Do you remember? There was a storming of the Bastille, la 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 la. So all that happened around 1789. That's all you need to know, 1789. So that's the famous, like, it says the French Revolution. Well, it took about 10 years, really, right? It didn't happen overnight. 3 years later, they got rid of Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI. So they were locked up for quite a long time. And they were getting, you know, like, they were stripping back. They didn't do it overnight. It was like a gradual, it was gradual. And then, so then they had, so they got rid of them. And that was the other name. Do you remember Robespierre? You always hear about Robespierre. Well, who was he? Well, he was the one that he got rid of Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI. He was the head of that lot. And then, right, in a nutshell, you've got storming the Bastille, overthrow the king and queen. Then you've got Robespierre. You enter into what they called what was that called? That period of, what did they call that? It was like the Reign of Terror. That's what they called it. The Reign of Terror, right? So that was Robespierre and his guys, his cronies. We entered into a reign of terror. So they got rid of the opulent people and then went straight into a reign of terror. That lasted about 10 years. And then along came Napoleon, the dictator. So they went from starving to death to being guillotined if you gave an opinion, to then warmongering. So they went through a bit of a rough patch, the French, at that point. And it ran from like 1789 to 1799. It was that period. There you go. That's it in a nutshell. As per the the YouTube French History for Idiots that I watched. I felt quite enlightened and educated afterwards. The other thing about Versailles, right, and it was interesting because on the day there was absolutely no there was no control over numbers. This would not have happened in England. Health and safety would have kicked in. There were far too many people. I would have said on any other day, if there'd been a third, but to be herded around like sardines in the sweltering heat, and you literally were herded around, right? You couldn't stand in a room, you couldn't enjoy it. So we just made the most of it like that. It was way too overcrowded for the temperature. You know, there wasn't any control over the numbers of people. Sure, we got an 11:30 slot, so, but that didn't mean that the 11 o'clock, the 10:30 and the 10 weren't still in the same room. You know, so it was just building up, very congested. And I couldn't help thinking that it could have been better organized. Okay, so that was Versailles. Each to his own. Want my bag. Following day, we stayed in, watched the History for Idiots, which I really got a lot out of. Right, this is looking good. Now, what I want to do is try some bricks. Right, so let me have a look. I'm going to try a couple of bricks. Now, to do the bricks, though, I'm going to use, let's see, if I use a grey, maybe in this area here, if I were to just draw, just like this, look, just a, you don't have to do all the bricks. Do you see what I'm doing? Just a tiny little amount like that. And then I think I'll use the pencil. Yeah. And let's just add a little tiny bit of shadow on each brick. There you go. There, that's exactly what I wanted. Just a tiny little, yeah, doesn't that look nice? You could probably, I wonder if you could do it with the colour of the house. Let's put a couple up there like that. That might work. Brick, brick, brick. So then on the Friday, this is good. On the Friday, we went, that was, I think the Friday was probably one of my favourite days. In the morning, we went to a modern gallery. We decided to forget the Louvre. Hey, so this is interesting. On the day where I'd said that the Versailles was overfilled, the staff striked at the Louvre. Same problem. They shut the Louvre down without any warning because it was too hot and it was too overcrowded and the staff couldn't cope. And they said it was dangerous, très dangereux. So the same thing happened at the Louvre as in my opinion, could have happened at Versailles. So I wasn't wrong, right? Not that I always want to be right, but I felt vindicated in my complaint. I didn't complain, I just moaned to grave. However, same thing happened at the Louvre. So we decided to give the Louvre a pass and not bother. And so we went to another gallery, which was beautiful, right? And it was called the Bourse de Commerce, right? And it was, we were given, I'm just going to put these bricks in now. I'll put the bricks in first, I think. Yeah, there you go. Stick the bricks in and then colour them in. That's better. So we went to this Bourse de Commerce. I've got to show you this because this was, it was the strangest thing. It was a fantastic, it's called the Pinot collection. And there were two things that stood out for me that I've got to tell you about, right? And one, it was the reason we went because it's like a dome. It's like St. Paul's Cathedral. It's like a big dome. But let me show you, while you're looking at this, let me see if I can find the pictures. Let me just scroll up and I'll show you, because this was really quite spectacular. Okay, so let's see if I can turn this around. Hold on a minute. So in the dome, all right, let me go from that one, let me go to this one. Right, let me see if I can show you this picture. Okay, so you can see there's the dome, right, with the beautiful mural all the way around. There's Grace, and she's standing in front of what looks like a swimming pool with ceramic bowls in it, right? And this is an art. This is really quite something. Right, watch. So let me just find the, see how it looks? And look, not so many people. No, refreshing. Now, let me see if I can find, right, look at this. See it? See it moving? So what's magnificent is that the dome, the glass dome, is reflected in the water. Now, the art installation, what it does is, because of the construction of the dome, as these ceramic bowls, all different sizes, as they hit each other, look, it's vast, right? But as they touch each other, because there's a very gentle, let me just turn it this way, see if I can turn it up. Can you hear it? Right. You probably can't hear it. Can you hear the bells? As they touch each other, yeah, it really is something fantastic for meditating, you know. It was beautiful. And then the other thing, so I left Grace, so she was sitting there and she was meditating, right? So I wandered off and I let her do her thing. And I went and I was looking for the loo. TMI. Anyway, so then I find I'm on my own and I find this, and I nearly had a heart attack. Right, look. So I found this little, like a mouse, right? And I thought, oh no, what are the chances, right? But then I realized that it was also an art installation. So, so exquisite. And it's this tiny little mouse on this huge wall. That's it, right? I know. Let me see if I can show you. Now, listen. Maybe. See him moving, look.
Hold on. Wait a minute. I cannot, I could, I cannot, I could not.
I tell you what, I was blown away by this little mouse, and it was an art installation, a little automaton, right? Tiny little white mouse, and when you listen to it, it was just fear, confusion. It symbolized fear, confusion, and anxiety, and an inability. And he was stuttering and stumbling, and he never made any sense at all because he didn't know what to do. He didn't know whether to leave or go, or you know. But it was obviously symbolic. It had a lot of symbolic reference. But for me, right, that was powerful. And I understand that the Louvre and Versailles, you know, they're very opulent and very ostentatious, and there's wealth. It's just dripping, you know, the Hall of Mirrors. And I've seen something similar in Germany in one of King Ludwig's places, you know, and yeah, it's very, very, very impressive because of its vastness, you know. But you know what touched me, or what spoke to me more, was the little mouse, you know. And then these ceramic bowls tinkling, and just the energy in the room, and it was so quiet, and you know, people were just sitting and listening, and not many people were talking. And if they were talking in whispers. You go to Versailles, everybody was looking at everything through the lens of a camera. They were all so busy taking photos and posing, and it was tasteless. It was absolutely tasteless. Whereas this, to me, was so tasteful. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that was Friday. Really the best morning. And then in the afternoon, Grace took us to that perfumery, which was so quintessentially Parisian, so French. And we learned how to make perfume in this really elegant setting with a perfumer in an old French building with the big old doors, and just a handful of people. And she just taught you how to make perfume, which we did, you know. And I've always liked Amarige, Givenchy, it's a French one. And she worked for Givenchy. She says, Amarige, you know, let me help you. And so we emulated Amarige. This is this beautiful perfume. And I made my own. And she told me exactly, you know, it was all about 1 drop, 2 drops, experimenting, writing it down. I'm rubbish at writing stuff down, but we did it, and she taught us how to do it. It was really, really exciting, you know, and informative. So Friday was it was an education as well, but a whole other one. So we had the Tuesday where we walked our socks off and we were educated by Raphael. Then we had the Wednesday where we went to Versailles and we were educated, you know, on where all the money went. Then on Thursday we had a day off and we educated ourselves on YouTube, French history for idiots. That was actually really informative for me, put things in order for me. Okay. And then Friday we went to a modern art installation, which there was loads more. I've just shown you the mouse and the bowls. It was full, 3 floors full of it. Just if you like abstract art, then the Bourse de Commerce is on your list next time you go. Okay. Yeah, so that was quite something, really. There you are. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed those stories, and I hope you enjoyed our tour. Saturday it was Beyonce, and then Sunday it was Montmartre again, which was really, we said on the Tuesday we'll go back to what we really liked, and Montmartre was the one we said we want to go back to that area, the one where the fountain was, Picasso, Van Gogh's, the blue door. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. The whole thing, really. It was a very fantastic week, and I've got so many memories, you know, not least these houses, because they're so kind of, well, they could be French, couldn't they? They could be French, they could be English, they could be London, they could be whatever you want them to be, really. Yeah, I like them. I see a plan here. I've got a plan, friends. I'm just adding a little bit of colour. I'm going to finish this off now, between now and Thursday. Going to add a little bit of colour to the trees. Maybe on Thursday we can try something. Maybe on Thursday we'll do the trees. There you go. Leave the trees grey. We'll do the trees on Thursday. And then we've got a bit of project completion. All right? So what's happening this week? Tuesday, Groovy Tuesday with Louise. Lovely to Louise tomorrow morning. Nothing in the afternoon because it really is too hot. And so we're going to hit the pause button because we've just had a big sale. We need to give you a breather too. Friday, we've got some brand new beautiful stamps with Janice. And then on Sunday, 3 to 5, Paul and I are officially launching 10 days of 10 years of Groovy. And we've got loads. We're going to have meetings this afternoon to work out exactly how we're going to celebrate a decade of Groovy. So there you go. That's it. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed the doodle. I'm liking me houses, I have to say. I think I might add a few more bricks. And then on Thursday, let's just finish the trees. And then I'm thinking, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to add some little people. Yes, that's what we'll do. I'll show you how to add some little people. Okay, because the streets are full. Lots of love. I hope you enjoyed that, and I shall see you on Thursday evening, if not before. Bye-bye now. Paul, thanks for your help. Stay cool, drink lots of water.